So, as per usual, I'm sitting on Discord thinking to myself, what do I want to play next? And one of the members of our Discord suggested that I play MANNADIUM BYSTIALs. I thought that's a really cool idea. And as we were building the deck, I mentioned the idea of MANNADIUM SPRIGHT because there's a bunch of level 2s, and they found that idea very interesting. So I thought, fuck it, let's do both. So we decided to put together this 60 card monstrosity that is an absolute fucking gem. Love this deck so much. Basically, it operates off of a lot of the same sort of concepts that the BYSTIAL Sprite deck does, while also having a lot of the combo elements of our Scarclaw MANNADIUM deck, and it sort of just ties them all together in a much more sort of synchro-focused pile rather than our link-focused pile from before that was focused around the Scarclaws, and I honestly just really love it. It plays really well. It feels like it plays through a shitload of interruption, and it does have quite a number of hand traps in and of itself. It just has tools that get past a lot of different situations in the meta. I just love it. I just think the deck's fantastic. I really do. The only card that I sort of want to play that I'm not currently playing is Ringo. I don't know if Ringo, like, has a super great place in the deck though, so that's why we're not including it. But this deck's just a blast. If you're a fan of any of the Synchro Sprite variations, if you're a fan of the MANNADIUM decks, anything like that, this one's right up your alley. It all works really, really well, especially considering, of course, your MANNADIUM tuners are all level 2, free special summons. You really want to be playing more tuners and everything with your MANNADIUM cards anyway, so you can get additional synchros in. It just works. It just works, right? I'm going to show off some gameplay. We're going to go over the deck at the end of the video so that you can get an idea as to what cards are actually being played. You can play it at 60. Some people wanted in our Discord to like whittle it down to maybe 50 to 45 cards, make it a little bit more consistent. But again, I sort of felt like we were taking away from what the deck wanted to do. So I'll talk about what cards you have to play, what cards you don't have to play, that sort of thing towards the end. First, though, I have some replays so you can actually get to see the deck in action to get to grips with what it wants to do. So if you're interested in this style of content or anything else that we do on the channel, you can, of course, subscribe to catch it as it comes out every single day. Just daily uploads, of course. You can like the video if you enjoy watching it. I'm not going to waste any more of your time here at the start. Let's just dive right in. Alright, now there's no particular order to these clips, we're just sort of playing what I had. Looks like we're playing against Scarclaw this time to do a fairly straightforward Scarclaw board here, not nearly as good as our Scarclaw deck that I uploaded before. If you want that list, of course, you can check back for that video. Our Scarclaw list is fucking nuts going first. This one, however, seems to be a more standard going second type list, trying to play the likes of Twinsaw for that additional interruption. Now, Twinsaw is a really powerful card, so let's not discredit that at all. So they're going to be going into Mask Arena. So Mask Arena, we've got the Tryhard. Tryhard then brings back a monster from grave as well as adding from deck to hand another copy of Rykard. So this is pretty cool. This is a much more simplistic way of doing Scarclaw, but it's also very effective. So they basically got a pop to Mask Arena and the Floodgate effect from Tryhard, switching us all to defense, and he's unaffected by defense position monsters. So generally speaking, this is a pretty solid board. Going to be getting in the R turn. We, though, have a really good hand. Double copies of a Hero Lives here. We're going to go for a Hero Lives, paying half our life points, paying 4,000 to summon out a Prisma. They're going to go for Mask Arena here, linking 3 off into Goddess. So Goddess then 2,400 attack points means that it has 3 negates at its disposal. They choose not to negate the Prisma, saving it for something more impactful. We're going to go Lightheart here. Lightheart searching our deck for our field spell. Very interesting that they didn't negate the Prisma, but again, they could have been looking at us as if we were using that as bait. Gonna grab the field spell, the Primitive Planet. Gonna use the Primitive Planet to grab ourselves a Rykard. Primitive Planet on our side is a really good way of playing around something like an Apollousa, because if you control defense position monsters, it gets reduced, of course. But the Twinsaw, we make the mistake of summoning Caligo Clockcrew first. I wanted to have monsters in defense so that when I summon the Rykard, I get its like additional draw. I was being a bit greedy, and the Twinsaw punished me for it, essentially. So we have to just normal summon out the Rykard. We did lose a little bit of advantage for that very reason, but it is what it is. Now, the Twinsaw is going to activate here, preventing the activation of Link Monsters effects, which I thought was very interesting considering they still have that Apollousa there, but I'm going to take it. We're going to go for the Assault Synchro now, Special's running out Spray Blue. Blue is going to search our deck for Jet. Jet is the out to the Tryhard. We're going to go Cupid Pitch here. Cupid Pitch boosting its level up to 6. Special summoning out the Jet, grabbing Sprite Smashers. We're going to use that Smashers, banishing Spray Blue from the graveyard, our Caligo Clockcrew and their Tryhard, clearing out their whole board, going into Chaos Ruler now using the Cupid Pitch. Cupid Pitch gets searching. Chaos Ruler will get milling. You could have considered going for Axel there. I just don't think we had a level 2. Well, we did have tuners in grave. Axel is also a good play. but I just favored the Chaos Ruler. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for us. We didn't hit a single light or dark monster. We did, however, hit the Obsidian. No, Obsidian allows us to special summon the Radium Heart. Radium Heart grabs us the Meek from deck. Of course, we can't summon it just yet. We're going to go Cross Sheep. We can't use Cross Sheep's effect, but what we can do is special summon out the Nemesis Corridor, so we can fusion summon into our Thunder Dragon Colossus, and then we're going to summon out another fusion monster, the Vicious Astrolite. That's 3026, 3k, 700 with our Cross Sheep is what secures us lethal damage, 700, 3k, and 26 from the Colossus, and that is game. Interesting game, definitely. Scarclaw going first has a lot of different ways of doing it. We, of course, have our Scarclaw Phantom Knight Firewall Pale type deck. That was just incredible. That deck, I think, is infinitely better than regular Scarclaw, especially going first. You could argue that regular Scarclaw is better going second because you're more likely to draw on the board breakers. But going first, man, you gotta fucking invest into a deck like mine, or even something like Gaming Sector's decks and lists are all very, very good going first. Yeah. Pretty good game to start off with, showing off a lot of the combos. Basically, it wasn't a super tense matchup from our opponent, but this does show off a lot of the plays that you want to be doing with the Cupid pitch, the constant sort of level 2 spam. We did misplay slightly on the Rykart. Of course, we should have summoned out Rykart instead of getting greedy, but the Twin Saw ended up punishing us for that. But yeah, that's pretty straightforward match. Let's just get into game number 2. All right, getting into game 2 here, going second, of course, up against Brandid. Are going to reveal the Garganol or whatever the hell its name is, summon out to Cartesia. Cartesia then fusion summon immediately into the Dusk Dragon. Using the Dusk Dragon's effect, they're going to send from deck to graveyard the Albion, and they're simply going to end their turn. Nothing too fancy, but we know how Brandid works. They have a shitload of ways of generating advantage. We're going to go Magnamut to wipe out that Albion before it can pose too much of a threat here during the end phase. Cartesia is, however, going back to our opponent's hand, so we're going to wait and see if that Cartesia actually does anything for our opponent. They do get to draw a card off the Maxi, of course. Magnamut gets searching during the end phase, going to grab ourselves a Lubellion, and they're going to pass back to us. So let's see if Brandid can stick to any of their old tricks, or whether or not they're dead in the water here. Lubellion then dropping itself to grab ourselves a Saronir from the deck. They're going to go Maxi of their own here. We have two options. We can either just back off, allow him to survive on the Maxi, or what we can do is we can run the risk of trying to push for lethal damage here. And with a deck like this, with such a free and open board, I find it very hard to resist going for broke here. So we are going to summon out the Turret here. Turret puts a level 2 on board. We wanted to put that level 2 on board before going Lubellion. Basically, my objective is, before anything else, I want to have Baron the Flourish, so if he does play Nibiru, I can negate it. Any other card, I will eat. I will eat an Ash, I will eat an Imperm, I will eat anything else. Nibiru is the only thing I'm worried about. That's why we need a Baron. So we're just going to start spamming our level 2s onto the board. Synchro Summon into the Chaos Angel here. Chaos Angel then going to target that Garganol during the main phase here, banishing it. Brandid Regain then going to return 1 to draw 1. Fortunately, Hero Lives, not very useful to us. They are going to go for Saronir to try and defend themselves. Saronir then triggering our Regain to bring back the Magnamut. Magnamut gets searching. Even though our opponent has, what was that, 10 cards in hand, we're going to go for Smashers then. Smashers going to be able to banish a level 2 on our field, as well as a card on our opponent's field, getting rid of both. And then we've got easy game, and our opponent simply surrenders. So again, just showing off some of the alternative plays, showing off that ultimately, when it comes to this deck in particular, and a lot of other piles are very similar to this, the only real thing that you need to worry about when it comes to going second, especially through a Maxi, is Nibiru. And the deck has plenty of ways of putting a Baron on board before 5 summons. Tons of ways of doing it. As soon as you have Baron up, you can play through anything else, right? You can play through Bystials, you can play through Ash Blossoms, you can play through Veilers, you can play through Ghost Bells, you can play through anything, right? You just struggle with Nib, and Baron is your out to Nib. Even Chaos Angel is a decent out to Nib. It doesn't protect your non-synchros, but it does protect your actual synchro monsters. So again, decent showing off some of the plays and combos. Again, not super intense gameplay from our opponent. That's simply because they didn't have that many matchups where we got super intense gameplay. In Masters, people tend to sort of, if they can't get their win right away, or if they think they're just going to lose, they end up surrendering. So there's so many games where we would start off our combo and we would start going off, and then they would just leave, right? So at least in this game, we get to see somebody's life points hit 0, or close enough anyways. Let's get into game 3. Alright, getting into our third and final game, going for Maxi off the rip, of course. It looks like it is an opposing 60 card pile. This should be interesting. They're going to hit our Maxi with Call by the Grave. We have a bit of a dicey hand, not the greatest hand in existence, but depending on what our opponent does, we may be able to make it work. And again, this is simply the nature of 60 card decks, right? You are going to be hit with these situations that are less than ideal. They're going to go Aliber here, grabbing back the Branded Fusion. They're going to use Branded Fusion, chaining Retribution to add back the Branded Opening, which I thought was very interesting. But it does end up coming up that there is a reason behind that, and you will see that very, very shortly. So that's fine. Grabbing back the Branded Opening, they're going to mill 2, going to go into the Albion, the Branded Dragon. Albion then allowing them to conduct another Fusion Summon. We actually make a cheeky little play here. I wouldn't recommend doing this in most circumstances, but if you're confident, right, if you have Balls of Steel, what you can do is you can go for a Bystial or DD Crow or whatever in response to the Albion, and you can banish the Albaz they have engraved, which prevents them from going for Lebellion or Mirror Jade. So we go for Saronir, banishing the Albaz, and now he's forced to complete his Fusion Summon, but he's to Fusion Summon something else, so he goes into Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. Triple Tactics Talent then, activating its effect, going to draw 2 cards from the deck. Unfortunately, that draw 2 might be just what he needs, because he gets into Thrust as well. Thrust then grabbing Foolish Burial from the deck. Foolish Burial then going to activate, sending another Lebellion to the graveyard, which does kind of put a bit of a cork on our plans. That really did not work out too well for us. I wanted to see if I could force him to get rid of both of the Albaz, Albion, and Lebellion. We did, but unfortunately he just had the means for another. Branded Beast taking out our Saronir. They're going to go for Baldric here because, of course, they have another Bystial monster. Going to clear out a monster from our graveyard. Albion then placing Branded Banishment directly onto the field. That pretty much eats up our call by as well. So this is not a fantastic spot for us. We draw into another Max C, so not great. Radium Heart coming out here. They're going to go for Branded Opening, dropping the last remaining card in hand to special summon out a Despia monster from their deck. They're going to summon Dramaturge, which is not a monster we see in play very often, but it's just the monster they needed for this exact situation. We're going to go for Called by the Grave, banishing their Branded Banishment target from the graveyard so that it does not revive and thus does not Fusion Summon. We're going to get rid of that Aliber, so no fusion for our opponent. Special summoning out the Meek. They're going to go Branded Beast, popping the Radium Heart, which is very unfortunate. We're going to go into Cupid Pitch here, but we know because of Dramaturge that it doesn't matter. He has the ability to negate the Cupid Pitch, and that's pretty much it. That's all she wrote. And then we pretty much just leave. Rough matchup. Branded's tough. Branded is the opposing 60 card pile. It probably is giving the entire meta a bit of a thrashing right now. I believe it's the top deck in tournament finishes on the MDM website. So Branded Despia is definitely going to be one to watch out for. Yeah, we didn't have that great of a hand. We didn't have any of our searchers. We didn't have any like big advantage gainers. Of course, that is naturally one of the downsides of playing a 60 card deck, is that while your ceiling is super high, usually your consistency isn't always there. It is what it is. Let's get into the actual deck profile and we'll talk briefly about that. Alright, so here's the list. I'm going to very briefly go over every card, but I'm not going to go over every single card in detail here because we would be here for the next 7 business days. But very briefly going over the hand traps and hand trap selection, just so we can cut them out of the list, that we don't need to think about them. We've got the Gamma package, of course. Gamma's really good in this deck. I think stopping Max C in standby is pretty big right now because of Kashtira being popular again. And it being a level 2, it giving you a level 8 Synchro. There's just a lot of payout to using Gamma. Got the 1 Veiler, double Droll, triple Max C. We've got the triple Ash Blossom. We have the Call By and the Crossout, of course, singular Imperm, and I believe that to be it. Yeah, that's it in terms of hand traps. So that brings us down to 44. So we were playing 16 hand traps, right? Now, a lot of people like to play these types of decks with no hand traps at all and rely entirely on engine cards, and if that's what you want to do, then by all means. Of course, you would definitely include at least Max C because it's the best card in the game, but other than that, you can actually just play this deck pure engine, and you will be much more consistently able to go into all of your plays. However, the thing that changes then is whether or not your plays are going to be enough to win you the game. Now, the deck is very powerful, and its end boards can be quite significant, so there is the distinct possibility that that may be the case. However, it's not guaranteed. This is the actual guts of the deck. Now, what is the deck actually made up of? Well, it's part Mannadium, part Bystial, part Sprite. So, in terms of Sprite, we're playing double blue, single jet, double carrot, and double red. Basically, the only reason we're playing double red and double carrot is because you really want to see those level 2 non-tuners in hand, because we're playing a lot of level 2 tuners. We're playing the Shinobi Necro, Assault Synchron at 2. We're playing, of course, the Mannadium Meek at 3. We're playing the Torrid at 1. There's a lot of level 2 tuners going on, so having a lot of level 2 non-tuners to match goes along with it. If you're playing the deck closer to 40, you can potentially drop these guys down to 1 or maybe 2 and 1 or something like that. You don't need to play them at 2 and 2, but that's just what we were doing. So what do? Well, basically all the Sprite cards, for those who don't know, can special summon themselves to the field if you control a level 2 monster. They're pretty much that simple. The idea is, of course, that you put out one of your level 2 tuners, special summon a Sprite monster, use those to win the Cupid pitch, shenanigans ensue. That is the deck, essentially, in a nutshell. We also have Caligo Clawcrow, which is a generic level 2 non-tuner, which is searchable from Cupid Pitch's effect if you're in a pinch. Secondary to that, can just special summon itself from the hand if you control a dark monster, which is not very hard to do in this deck. So, really good card. Shinobi Necro, if banished from the graveyard by a card effect, will special summon itself back from the banish pile, so it's a level 2 tuner that recurs itself, which is especially useful in combination with your Bystials or Chaos Ruler. So Shinobi Necro is pretty baller. That's usually your Sprite Sprint target as well. Assault Synchron special summons itself from hand for free by paying 700 life points, which is great. It does Synchro lock you while it's on the field, but that's okay. You're just going to Synchro it off and then you're unlocked again. If a Dragon Synchro monster on your field is either attributed or banished, like your Chaos Ruler through its second effect, you can banish this card from the graveyard to resummon that monster back to the field. So this helps recycle your big monsters even more. MANNADIUM, Meek, and Torrid can both special summon themselves to the field if you control a Visa Starfrost or a monster with 1500 attack and defense. Remembering, of course, that Elemental Hero Prisma will be ensuing the name of Visa Starfrost, so Meek and Torrid can also special summon themselves to the field under those conditions as well. Meek then, when popped, will summon another Meek from deck, giving you the option to boost it from level 2 to level 4. That's not once per turn. Torrid, when destroyed, will special summon another MANNADIUM tuner from your deck. That is once per turn. So we're playing the 1 Torrid because it's once per turn and 3 Meek because it isn't. Double Hero Prisma. Prisma will send Visa Starfrost from your deck to the graveyard to assume its name. It's just that simple. That enables a shitload of combos. And it's really good to just put additional monsters on board. So there's it's an extra light monster as well, which is handy for your Chaos Ruler because you play a lot of darks. Yeah, everything about this card is useful. Nemesis Corridor, because this is what enables you to go into Colossus. You search it off a Cupid Pitch, activate its effect, special summon itself to the field, and then you tribute it off for Colossus. Reichardt and Reumhart. So Reichardt can special summon itself to a zone where adjacent to a Scarclaw monster, like your Lightheart, which you will almost always control thanks to your Prisma, thanks to your myriad of other methods of going into it. So Reichardt's basically a free special summon. It's also one of the deck's better normal summons as well, so don't be afraid to normal summon this card, because on summon, it will search your deck with the Scarclaw Arrival, which is basically a Monster Reborn. Reumhart then. Reumhart can special summon itself in the hand by targeting either a MANNADIUM monster or a monster that has 1500 attack and 2100 defense, i.e. the Reichardt, to destroy that monster and summon itself. On summon, you will search your deck for a MANNADIUM card, which is useful. That can either be a tuner, that can be your Obsidian. Well, that's basically a tuner or Obsidian, but that's still pretty damn useful. Visa Starfrost is here entirely for his name. He can be special summon himself from hand by targeting a monster on your field and destroying it to special summon itself, which is useful alongside the likes of your MANNADIUM monsters. But it's primarily here just for its name to be sent off from deck to grave as a Prisma target, that sort of thing. So I wouldn't get too hyped up over a Visa Starfrost, but he is definitely very, very useful. Lastly, we've got our Bystial monsters then. We've got Magnamut, Saronir, Drissworm, and Baldrake, as well as 2 copies of Lobelion. These guys are all neat and they all have effects, but their primary benefit is the fact that they are level 6 non-tuners that special summon themselves to the field. That's pretty much the extent of their usage. We also have Lubellion here, which of course can summon itself by tributing off a level 6 or higher Dark Dragon, which gives you access to a level 8 non-tuner. It can also activate Brandid Regain directly from deck, so there is a little bit of advantage to be gained off of the Lobelion, plus it can discard itself to grab any one of these other dorks directly from deck to hand. So Lobelion, definitely a lot of value to be had in this card, and the fact that it's a level 8 non-tuner that you can very easily summon before 5 summons is one of the primary benefits of it, because it means that if you're going second through Max C, or if you're just in a situation where you think your opponent might have Nibiru, it gives you very easy access to Baron de Fleur. A Hero Lives, special summon Prisma from deck. So Prisma is only really good because A Hero Lives mandates it. A Hero Lives will special summon Prisma directly from deck by paying half your life points, so long as you don't control any face-up monsters. It is one of the freest combo starters in the game, right? I mean, this card, first and foremost, right? Total Ash bait. It's max C bait if you have Gamma in hand as well. People will try to use max C in response to this. So if you have Gamma, perfect opportunity to use Gamma too. A Hero Lives is just generally a fantastic card, given all of the power the Prisma brings to the deck in putting VSS Engrave, assuming it's named, to go into Lightheart, to go into your field spell, to go into your blah blah blah, right? The amount of combos that this guy can start, and I get to summon him for free from deck, 100%. You can't tell me no, man. That's so good. Arrival, just Monster Reborn for Scarclaws, or Visa Starfrost. Obsidian. Obsidian destroys a monster you control to grab yourself a Peaceful Planet Calarium, or if you already have Calarium, you would normally be able to grab another MANNADIUM spell or trap, but we don't play any. So it's basically just grabbing the field spell. If you really wanted to get extra mileage out of this card, you could put like Imaginings in the deck, but because we're playing such a thick deck, you're not often going to have MANNADIUMs in hand enough to use this card. Reframing would be a much better option if you really... if it's really bugging you that if you have this card and you're not able to search anything for it, I would say Reframing is a very, very good option to throw in. It very seldom came up in the gameplay, but again, that's partially because we're playing a 60 card pile, right? And we probably didn't find ourselves in enough situations to where it would have been useful. So if you can find room for a Reframing, I would definitely throw it in. It's not even a bad card to just have, because its only stipulation is that you must control a Synchro monster, which is not difficult for this deck to do. So it's not even like a brick. So I would definitely, I would consider playing it if I were you. This card is just a general, like, good card in most Synchro decks, right? It's just Solemn Strike and Judgment mixed together. I love this card. It's so good. We have our 1 Reichphobia. I was playing it at 2. I opened it too often. I wanted to run 1. I did not really want to see this card in my opening hand. Basically, on activation, it just searches for a Scarclaw monster. It also has the ability to pop a card your opponent controls if there are 3 or more defensive position monsters on the field, which is useful and is definitely really good spot removal, particularly in dealing with floodgates. So the spot removal cannot be overlooked, but it's not something you want to be seeing every single time because it is super easy to search for off of your Lightheart. Speaking of field spells, this one's a little harder to search for, so we do play it at 3. This is the Peaceful Planet Calarium, which has a couple of different effects. Number 1, first and foremost, you grab a MANNADIUM monster or Visa Starfrost from deck to hand on activation. Light monsters gain 100 attack for each tuner on your field and graveyard. If a face-up tuner is destroyed, you get to bring back one of those tuners and summon it back to the field, which is huge in combination with your Meek, because again, if you pop the Meek, that means your field spell will resummon it, and Meek itself will summon another Meek directly from the deck, which means not only are you not going minus, you're actually going plus, which is great. So Calarium is awesome in that regard. It works really well alongside your Heart in particular. So yeah, no reason not to play this card at 3. Brandid Regained is just here for the Lobelion. I figure we might as well get some value out of that bitch. We are banishing cards quite a lot, so getting the additional draw power, especially in such a big deck, is definitely going to be relevant. We've got the Sprite Smashers, spot removal, floodgate removal, big bad boss removal. Again, Smashers is just amazing. I would consider playing this at 2, if I'm being real. This card's just really fucking good. And Reframing, which we just added. So there's the deck. You could literally, what you could do, if you didn't want to play this at 60. Some people are just outright opposed to 60 card decks. If you didn't want to play this at 60, throw in Max C, make some space, right? Cut a carrot. I don't fucking know. Cut Visas to 1, cut Prisma to 1. 45 cards. There you go. Play that. Just play that instead. It does all of the same shit. It just has less hand traps. Which means that there will be some situations where you don't get what you need. There will be some situations where your opponent's board is too much for you because you weren't able to interrupt it. However, this will do all of the same combos and will do them more consistently. So it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. It's not the one's better than the other. It's that you're trading on which one you think is going to be better. So this is a way of playing it. If you would rather play closer to 40/45 cards, you could even sort of start slicing more, but I think the more you slice, the less of the strategy you sort of have to play around with. I think this is enough of the deck to make do with and not notice any significant changes other than the absence of hand traps. It does mean that you instantly lose to Max C, whereas at least if you're playing like the Ash Blossoms and the Call Buys and things like that, you can have some answers to Max C. If you wanted to be conservative but still remain your Max C counters, you could play it at 50 with 3 Ash and double Call Buy, right? So that where exactly the buck stops is up to you. I'm just telling you what you can do. I'm telling you what I've been doing. What you do with that information is up to you. In terms of the extra deck's fairly straightforward. Of course, we have the one mandatory Astrolabe, which you absolutely need to play. We have the one Colossus, which you need to play. It's the whole fucking point of the deck is to go into Cupid Pitch to grab Nemesis Corridor for Colossus and then enable some jank XC synchro plays. So, like, yeah, you have to play these two for fucking damn sure. Have to play Cupid Pitch. It's the level 4 tuner. It's the whole reason this deck works, right? You summon out a tuner and a non-tuner level 2. Go into Cupid Pitch, boost its level up to 6. That can work alongside any of your other level 2s. Or you can reduce it to 2 to work alongside any of your level 6s. To go into Chaos Ruler. Basically, your objective is Chaos, Cupid Pitch in the Chaos Ruler. That enables your search for Nemesis Corridor for your Colossus. That enables the Chaos Ruler search off the top of your deck. There's just a lot of advantage to be gained. That's the whole reason this card works, this deck works. Tri-Edge Master is here almost exclusively for situations where your Cupid Pitch gets hit by a Imperm or something like that prevents its level modulation. In those circumstances, you can still get access to your Colossus of things just by synchro summoning it alongside any level 2 into this guy, right? Because its graveyard effect is what gets you the search. So having the level 6 is important. Does Tri-Edge Master in particular matter? No. Stardust Charge Warrior does the same job. The Cloud Beast Malong does the same job. All of those are decent options. I just like the draw power and the fact that this guy's light. That's it. Chaos Ruler, again, we talked about this card a million times. We all know what Chaos Ruler does. Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon brings back a level 2 on summon, instant access to particularly your Dispatter. Dispatter is one of the newest monsters out of the new pack, so this card can bring back a banished light or dark monster, summoning it back to your field. Not from your banished pile, it can be from either banished pile, which is pretty important. If your opponent activates a monster effect, you can either shuffle back one of your banished cards to pop it, or one of your opponent's banished cards to negate it. It's that simple. Baron, once while face up, Omninegate. Again, we talked about this a million times. We talked about Chaos Angel a million times, where if you on summon, banish a card, you don't need to use a tuner for this if you're using only light and dark monsters. And it has 2 protection-based effects based upon the attributes used for its summon. If you use a light, your synchro monsters are unaffected by activated monster effects, and if you use a dark, all of your monsters are immune to battle destruction. Pretty awesome. Almirage, purely for situations where you just open up a bunch of Bystials or whatever it is and you don't have the ability to summon any of them. It means you can normal summon any of your smaller monsters, especially something like Shinobi Necro, and instantly then summoning out your Almirage to put something in grave, to banish for your Bystial, to hopefully generate some level of momentum. Not mandatory. If you don't have this card, don't worry about it. Don't craft it for this deck. It is a useful card to have in general for many Bystial piles, at least in my experience, so it's not a bad investment. But it's not a mandatory card. We have the Lightheart, which on summon searches your deck for the Reichphobia, which begins your whole Scarclaw play or your A Hero Lives play. Again, it can also bring itself back from the graveyard if you control Visa Starfrost, which is also kind of neat, but doesn't come up super often in this particular build. We've got Cross Shape. Basically, if a fusion monster is summoned to one of the zones it points to, you get to bring back a monster from the grave. Sprite Elf, once per turn, bring back a level 2 from the graveyard, and anything it points to cannot be targeted by card effects. Sprint, on summon, send a level 2 from deck to grave. Especially your Shinobi Necro. Almost entirely your Shinobi Necro, to be honest. Again, if you don't have this card, don't craft it. It's not key. You can replace this with anything else. And lastly then, Apollousa, just in case you have vomited a whole bunch of monsters on the field and don't have anything to do with them, Apollousa is a really good monster to use in those types of situations. What you could do if you really didn't want to craft Sprint, or you didn't want to craft Almirage, or whatever it is, right? There's a card you don't have or don't want to play or whatever. A really good monster to have in those situations is Goddess. If you want to go one further, let's say you don't want to play Almirage or Sprint, play IP. IP Goddess, just as good, right? It just depends on whether or not your end goal is consistency or high ceiling. And I chose consistency, so that's my thing. So yes, that's the deck. I'll bring up the original list now, so you can see exactly what it was we were playing, which is right over here. And this is it, right? You can look at the 40 card version, the 45 card version, the 50 card versions that I was just showing on screen. You can take into consideration the changes I suggested to be made, do whatever you want, and just floating it out there. The rest of it is on you. Now, if you want any additional help or want to ask any additional questions, you can leave a comment below, or you can hop into our Discord to speak to me and the other guys in there directly. Over 350 people in there now, which is pretty damn awesome. So if you want to be involved, by all means, links in the description. It's totally free, no requirements, no nothing, just be nice. And yeah, other than that, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, like the video if you haven't liked the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.